Hello, everyone, and welcome back into another edition of Sporting Views. Now, if you're a big college basketball fan, the conversation that has seemingly overtaken any other is the debate between who will win the Wooden Award for National Player of the Year between Duke freshman phenom Cooper Flagg and Auburn sensation Johni Broome. That is the topic of discussion on today's edition of the show. Now, a lot of people think that this competition is done and dusted and this is Flagg's to lose. However, there are multiple cases to prove otherwise, and we still haven't seen both of these players in a tournament setting. Last year, obviously, Johni Broome had that opportunity with Auburn, but they were upset by Yale in the first round. This year, both of these guys are capable because of their teams on going on deep runs, but it's how they perform in the tournament that I think will separate one from the other. But I'd like to make a case for both of them here, so without further ado, let's jump right into it. I think the catalyst for a lot of people's transition from loving Broome, being all in on Broome, to loving Flagg now and seeing him as more likely to win this award, all comes down to one specific date. January 11th. That is the day that Johni Broome went down with an ankle injury, and while he did not miss significant time, that started a fantastic, dominant 2-month stretch of form for Cooper Flagg. In fact, on that day, he delivered perhaps the best performance of any single player in this college basketball season. Against Notre Dame, he scored 42 points, an ACC freshman record at the time, and had scored, after that fact, 20 points on 13 occasions. Consider this. Cooper Flagg has won the ACC Rookie of the Week honors an astounding 11 times. He's won both the ACC Player of the Week and Rookie of the Week honors 5 times, all of them coming within this 2-month span of January and February. That goes to show that Cooper Flagg has that in his game. And what's been most impressive is his form in ACC play. In fact, in ACC play, he is second in scoring, 10th in rebounding, 7th in assists, 4th in field goal percentage and shooting an impressive 45.1% from three-point range. In the month of January, perhaps his most impressive month this entire season, he averaged 25.4 points, 7.6 rebounds, 4.9 assists, 57.9% from the field, and 42.9% from three. Those are outstanding numbers, and it goes to show that Flagg not only elevated his game to a new level whilst Johni Broome was out for that significant period of time, but he improved one thing that I think was keeping him back from potentially taking this award outright, and that was his three-point form. He was around a 25% three-point shooter before the month of January and elevated his game to the point where he was hitting 45.1% in the month of January alone. Then let's talk about how he's a two-way player as well, Cooper Flagg. He was seen not just as the number 1 overall player in this class, which he reclassified to, but seen as an elite on and off ball defender that could guard virtually any position you needed. In the top 25 in the ACC in both block and steal percentage, and he's second in defensive win shares as well. Third in defensive box plus minus, second in defensive rating, but I do feel that that aspect of his game is why he's in this race wholeheartedly outside of just offensive statistics, because Broome, in my opinion, actually might kind of edge him offensively, but not necessarily of late, but we'll get to that in a bit. So ultimately, overwhelmingly, the month of January and February, the months of January and February, were Flagg's coming out party. This was the moment where he cemented himself as the Wooden Award favorite. But if there's any one caveat in Flagg's game, it has nothing to do with him. In Flagg's case, the only reason I can see him losing this award is simply because of the schedule he's faced. He faced Auburn and performed well against them. On the road against Kentucky, he performed well against them. But if you look at the ACC, where the bulk of his games are played because that's your conference schedule, it's a weak conference. Perhaps the worst conference in all of college basketball this season. It's nothing against Flagg. But Johni Broome is someone with Auburn who played in the toughest conference this season and still was able to perform at a high level. So that is one knock against Cooper Flagg. The other is that in certain games where he did face the elite competition, say against Kentucky, say against Kansas early on in the season, and I know it's hard to knock him from what he did early on in the season because right now he's performing admirably. It's those moments that could, in effect, also settle in once March Madness starts. Because this is Cooper Flagg's first kind of tournament style setting he's going to be facing here. So, if, say, Duke get to a certain moment in a pivotal game and Flagg has to make certain decisions, the question will be, can he execute down the stretch in those games? Because we want to see that not only is he dominant, but that he's learning from his mistakes early on in the season in those critical moments. Because if not, that's where a lot of these caveats could come back to bite him. That being said, he has a very compelling case. Now, let's talk about his competitor in Johni Broome. Sorry, I did not have my graphic here. Speaking of graphics, finally starting to look a little bit more official as well. Hopefully, I can incorporate more graphics into these shows. Hopefully, you guys like them. But let's talk about Johni Broome. He is an absolutely incredible player. He was someone who Bruce Pearl wanted from Morehead State. And he, at the time, told Broome that in order to play for Auburn, he had to earn his minutes. And he's done that in spades. And this is a player on a team that spent 8 consecutive weeks at the number 1 position and played the schedule worthy of a number 1 team. And in that span, he's averaged 18 points per game, 10.7 rebounds per game, 3.3 assists per game, and 2.4 blocks per game. And the most incredible aspect of it is that he's averaged no worse than 79% of attempts and connecting on all of them against both man-to-man and zone schemes this season. Nothing below 79%. So that goes to show that Johni Broome's versatility on the offensive side of the basketball is somewhat outweighing Flagg's own production, because Flagg, in my opinion, clears him defensively. But Johni Broome's versatility against all different kinds of schemes is going to be pivotal to how I view Auburn in this NCAA tournament, because that's where I find myself thinking there will be separation between these two players, dependent on their strengths and dependent on their flaws as well. So the fact that Broome has put up fantastic statistics against both man and zone schemes will pay dividends, I believe, in the NCAA tournament. But let's talk about that momentum, because Broome, ever since that injury, has had impactful games, but not necessarily to the extent of what Flagg has been able to put up in these past 2 months. Now, they did win Auburn all these games without him, proving that they have the depth necessary as a team to compensate for injury. But when he has come back, especially this month, he has looked very average. And it has to do potentially with his injury, but also maybe it's just this recent dip in form of the whole team as well. He had 4 single-digit efforts and his 17 points combined in his past 2 games. But we have to factor in, right, the fact that this is a tough schedule. And when injuries happen, especially in the SEC, they have to be looked at in hindsight. Because what this Auburn team and Johni Broome especially have done this season in a very tough conference can't go unnoticed just because of his struggles in recent games. Yes, they've had tough losses to both A&M and Alabama just recently. But I have to choose to believe that this team has proven that with or without their best player, they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. And that bodes well for his case in the NCAA tournament to separate himself from Flagg. But here's the thing. While Duke has only faced 4 KenPom top 50 teams, and Auburn has faced 17, you have to imagine that Flagg's performance over Broome's these past 2 months in a cumulative manner far outweigh what Broome has done with a tougher schedule. Had Flagg slowed down a little bit, kind of tainted his momentum in any kind of way in ACC play, I feel like that would have been something for Broome to say, I'm better than this kid. But because of Flagg's brilliant performances over these past couple of months, you can't necessarily say that it's looking good for Broome's case. He has dominated each and every single facet of the game, whether it be improving his three-point range, driving to the rim, being an elite finisher, defensive work as well. I feel that Cooper Flagg believes this is his race to lose. But what I feel like is that no matter who wins, and I do believe that at this current moment, I will be sticking with Cooper Flagg. This has been a fascinating win and award race, unlike any we've seen before. Maybe you know the last time we had a race this similar was in 2019-20 when Obi Toppin won over Luka Garza, but this one just feels very competitive, and it feels very centered not just on the players, but the teams themselves. Look at, for example, this Duke team, and tell me that this isn't a squad that can compensate for Cooper Flagg's absence, right? Everyone has their own specific trait that fits perfectly and seamlessly into this team to get it going. Yes, they haven't had to face elite competition as of yet, especially in a tournament-style setting where it's a one-off game, but I still think this Duke team, if they were in the same position as Auburn sans Broome, would still perform at an elite level just because of the talent they have there at every different position and what each and every single one of those players can be equipped to do. And this Auburn team are battle-tested. They have the depth, they have the experience. They're very much like a Duke. But I think what's going to matter is how central both Flagg and Broome are when they get to the later rounds. Because that's finally where I expect Cooper Flagg to have to face tougher competition. That's also where I expect Johni Broome to have to elevate his game to prove that this Auburn team might just need him in certain moments. Because we didn't see that last year because they were upset by Yale, remember. So it's going to come down to those two guys really having to matter for their teams in late game situations and in the later rounds of the tournament. Let me know what you think in the comments below. It's going to be an interesting debate, but this has been another edition of Sporting Views. Thank you all for tuning in. We're going to have a lot more content coming up, potentially a couple more graphics here as you see. So stay tuned, and here's to a good week ahead of sports content.